When the Airbus A380 first took to the skies, onlookers couldn't quite believe their eyes. It looked like a building trying to fly. Fully loaded, this mammoth weighs in at 560 tons, roughly the weight of 100 elephants. With 2 full passenger decks stretching across its entire body, it was built to carry over 800 people across oceans in a single flight. If you look at this diagram comparing aircraft footprints, you can see how an everyday Boeing 737 or Airbus A320 looks almost like a toy next to it. Yet today, the production lines for this aircraft are completely dead. No manufacturer is attempting to build anything close to this size. To understand why aviation's most ambitious project was shut down, we have to look at how it was put together in the first place. Building the A380 was too massive a job for any single facility. The plane is an intricate puzzle made of roughly 40 million individual parts. Those components were manufactured by over 1,500 different companies scattered across 30 countries. Once those massive components, like the enormous fuselage sections, were built, they couldn't fit inside any existing cargo planes. They were even wider than standard highways. To move these pieces over land, local governments and Airbus had to construct a dedicated logistics network. They reinforced rural bridges, widened public roads, and redesigned city intersections. Even then, the heavily loaded transport trucks were only allowed to creep through towns in the dead of night to avoid paralyzing daytime traffic. All these components eventually arrived at the final assembly line in Toulouse, France. From the massive carbon fiber wings down to the smallest electric relays, every piece had to align to the millimeter. A single calculation error in a factory thousands of miles away would bring the entire hangar to a standstill. Before the A380 could even attempt its first flight, it required physically altering the landscape and infrastructure of the towns it passed through. Lifting 560 tons of metal off the ground seems like a violent defiance of gravity. You would expect a ride that heavy, pushed by 4 giant engines, to be loud and turbulent. This animation shows exactly how engineers solved that friction. Look at the 80-meter wingspan. During flight, these massive wings are designed to bend and flex upwards by as much as 4 meters. That flexibility acts like a giant shock absorber, catching the shifting air pressure while keeping the main body of the plane rock solid. Because the wings absorbed the turbulence, the interior cabin remained incredibly stable and exceptionally quiet. Passengers experienced a smooth, spacious flight that no other commercial aircraft could match. The A80 was an undeniable mechanical triumph. The engineers delivered exactly what they promised. The machine's eventual downfall came entirely from the boardrooms, where executives misread how the world of travel was about to evolve. The first cracks appeared as soon as the plane touched down. Because of its massive wingspan and double-decker height, standard airport gates were useless. Major airports like Dubai, London, and Los Angeles spent billions of dollars widening runways and building specialized dual-level boarding bridges just to get passengers on and off. This map visualizes what they called the hub model. Airbus forced these expensive infrastructure changes because they predicted that global populations would funnel from smaller regional airports into a few giant mega-hubs. To move crowds between major hubs, airlines desperately needed 800-seat planes. Meanwhile, Boeing bet on the opposite vision, the point-to-point model. Assuming passengers hate layovers, they believed people prefer flying directly between smaller cities, bypassing mega-hubs entirely. Airlines ran the numbers and sided with Boeing. They found that smaller, highly fuel-efficient twin-engine jets were vastly cheaper to operate and much easier to fill with paying customers day after day. The math was brutal for Airbus. The A380 required hundreds of passengers on every single flight just to break even. Flying a giant plane with dozens of empty seats burns through an airline's profit margins instantly. By 2019, the market had spoken clearly enough for Airbus to face reality. They officially announced they would shut down the A380 production line. Then, a few months later, the 2020 global pandemic hit. International travel dropped to near zero overnight, instantly making the most expensive passenger planes completely useless. Airlines scrambled to cut costs. Dozens of these billion-dollar machines were flown out to remote desert storage facilities, their engines sealed and windows taped over, parked indefinitely under the hot sun. The industry had written the super jumbo jet off as an expensive relic, left to rust in the sand while airlines prepared for a future of smaller, nimble aircraft. But as global borders reopened, travel demand didn't just return, it exploded. The surge caught the airlines completely off guard. Suddenly, they didn't have enough planes to carry the sheer volume of people trying to fly. Desperate for capacity, carriers swallowed their pride. They sent maintenance crews back into the deserts, unsealed the enormous engines, and brought the A380s back into active service. This sudden return to the skies is a rare second act, but it is not a permanent revival. Airlines are only flying these giants right now because they already own them, and retiring them early is a massive financial loss. No one is putting in fresh orders for new ones. The A380s soaring above us today are the very last of their kind. As these specific airframes reach the end of their operational lifespans over the next decade, they will be quietly retired for good. When the final A380 touches down for the last time, the era of the megajet will close with it.